Hello and welcome to Seth's Games and Guides. We are here again with another PvP Warlock guide. This is going to be PvP Demonology guide, and we're just going to hop right in. Keep in mind my specialization tends to be Affliction, so Demonology I'm a little less up to date on, but I have tried this spec in PvP. This is what I've found to work pretty well. I'm trying to aim these guides so they're helpful to not just the advanced people who are interested in hearing others' opinions, but also the new people trying to find a spec that suits them. And as such, forgive me if it gets a little drawn out at locations where I'm explaining. Also, on top of that, keep in mind, as with all my guides, these are simply suggestions. Take everything with a grain of salt, and feel free to customize. If you did not tailor the talent spec to your personal playstyle, it may not feel right, regardless of how good it may be. So, we're going to hop into Demonology. Keep in mind this is a PvP Warlock Demonology guide. So, for picking Demonology, we get Summon Felguard, which is a short cast and it summons a Felguard, which is a big stompy guy who can Blade Storm, charge, and has an Axe Toss that stuns and does some damage. So he's really good. He's probably the best demon in-game that's classified as a pet versus a guardian. So he's really awesome, he's really powerful. It's kind of having your own nerfed pet arms warrior with you in some regards. Not as good as an arms warrior, but still a little bit like it. Next you also get Demonic Knowledge, sorry about that, which increases fire and shadow spell damage by 15%, which is pretty cool because Affliction gives you shadow damage over time and Cataclysm gives you fire. That's the Affliction and Destruction versions. This gives you both, granted not as high a degree as the other two, but it gives you both regardless. And finally, we also have the Mastery Master Demonologist, which increases the damage done by your demon servants and the damage you deal while transformed into a demon. Yes, you heard that right, folks. That is the last talent in the Demonology talent tree, transforming into a demon, by 30%. Each point of Mastery increases it by an additional 2%. Now, Mastery for Warlocks, regardless of the spec, it's kind of one of those points where it's like, okay, Mastery's pretty cool, but you can't build a Warlock on only Mastery. And that really proves true in Demonology, because your demon form only lasts 30, 40 seconds, something like that, if that. So most of your DPS still is happening out of demon form, so increasing the damage you deal in there is only helping with that set amount of time. And on top of that, increasing your pet's damage output, your pet's doing some helpful damage output. More damage is better than no damage being done. However, you are still going to be the main source of damage, not your pet. So while Mastery is good for a Demonology Warlock, it is not the primary stat you need to be looking at. Potentially more on that later as we go, but Masteries are made to help, not to be the primary source of the character, or at least that's how I feel. Anyway, we picked Demonology. Let's view the talent trees, shall we? We've got Demonic Embrace, which increases total stamina by 4, 7, 10% at each 3 points. We have Dark Arts, which reduces casting time of your Imp's Firebolt, increases damage done by your Felguard's Legion Strike, which is kind of like Heroic Strike, and increases the damage of your Shadow Hunter's Shadow Bite, or Fel Hunter's Shadow Bite, pardon me. Basically, you're always going to be using your Felguard. So really all you get for those points is 15% damage on Legion Strike, which is pretty damn good. 15% is no small percentage. 15% of a huge-ass number is 15% more of that huge-ass number. So you really can't complain. Even if it was just 1%, that's still more than you had before. Either way, moving on. Fel Synergy, you have a 100% chance to heal your pet for 15% of the amount of spell damage you do. So that's pretty cool. It helps keep your pet up based on AoEs, even though they still take reduced damage from AoEs now with Blizzard, so that's kind of a meh talent. Looking at this first row, the best one is going to be Dark Arts for that 15% damage increase on your Felguard's Legion Strike, combined with your Mastery, is a nice little boost to his Legion Strike, so he'll be putting out some pretty decent DPS. On top of that, you have Fel Synergy, which is a decent choice. I'm not going to say don't take it if you feel like taking it. It's just one of those where it's like they already take reduced damage from AoEs, and if they're getting focused by something, there's a different situation going on. Keep in mind this is a PvP scenario, so yes, they could focus your pet, which could hinder you, which sucks balls, but if they're focusing your pet, that means they're not focusing you, at which point you can nuke the shit out of them. So it's a little debatable on what you want to pick up, especially when your other option is Demonic Embrace, which is more stamina, which is delicious for PvP. So 2 of 3, keep in mind we always backfill in these guides. Next we've got Demonic Rebirth, which if your summoned demon dies, you gain the Demonic Rebirth effect, reducing the cast time of your next summoned demon spell by at 2 points 100%. Lasts 10 seconds. This effect has a 2-minute internal cooldown. Pretty cool. If they happen to actually kill your pet, as I discussed earlier, you can instantly summon them back. Woo! Not bad. It's okay. Honestly, that's for more squishier pets, in my opinion. I mean, the Felguard is so tough already, and I don't know. It's debatable. You could pick that. Let's look at what we have otherwise, though. We have Mana Feed, which your summoned demon gives you mana back when it critically hits, basically, and when you life tap, your demon gets some mana back. It's not bad. Keep in mind you are supposed to be dying in BGs. If you're not dying, then that's pretty awesome. Go you, but I mean, dying happens in PvP. It's just how it goes. In arenas, that has more of a place than in a battleground, I should say. Same with Demonic Rebirth and Fell Synergy. Those are more impacting in arena fights than in BG fights, because if you die in an arena, that could cost you the game. If you die in a BG, that's not necessarily going to cost you the game. Next we have Demonic Aegis, which increases the amount of health generated through spells and effects granted by demon armor by an additional 10%, and increases the amount of health returned by your fell armor by 100%. So basically, it's going to increase the health return of your 2 armors. As Demonology, I would recommend you use Fell Armor because it gives you more spell power, which translates better in your burst damage. On top of the spell power bonus from your Felguard, which you'll get later down in the tree, it's a nice little stack. And then this doubling, essentially, of the health return from that armor is obviously going to help you with your survivability, which is always important in PvP. So I would say definitely 2 of 2 Demonic Aegis out of what we've seen in the second row. And next we're going to look at Master Summoner, which reduces the casting time of your Imp, Voidwalker, Succubus, Fellhunter, and Felguard summoning spells by 0.5/1 second, and the mana cost by 100%. Basically, if you have to resummon them in PvP, you better not be close to being in combat. I can understand the difference of this in an arena situation, at which point I would say ignore Master Summoner and take Demonic Rebirth. In a BG scenario, I would say pass on both. They're not really that impressive. Master Summoner doesn't really have that good of a place anywhere, in my opinion. It's just a meh talent. Demonic Rebirth, good in arenas, meh in BGs. You're going to hear a lot of that comparison for Warlocks, because that a lot of the talents are like that. So I would say 2 in Demonic Aegis, backfill 1 in Demonic Embrace, and these last 2 points I would say either Fell Synergy, Demonic Rebirth, or Mana Feed. Fell Synergy is pretty cool because your pet will take damage. Demonic Rebirth is better in arenas, like I said, and Mana Feed is pretty nice. I mean, getting mana back when your pet critically hits is always a good thing. So I would say go Mana Feed. That's my personal choice. Mana Feed or Fell Synergy. If you're looking at just general PvP, not knowing whether you're going to do arenas or BGs on a daily basis, I would say Fell Synergy or Mana Feed. If you're looking at arenas, I would say Fell Synergy or Demonic Rebirth. Next, we're going to be looking at Impending Doom, which increases the chance for your Bane of Doom to summon a Ebon Imp, which is what they're called, by 30%, and also your Shadowbolt, Hand of Gul'dan, and Incinerate spells have a 15% chance to reduce the cooldown on demon form by 15 seconds. That is kick-ass. The more often you can turn into a demon, the higher your damage output will be. The higher your damage output is, guess what? The less likely you are to die from other people killing you. Also, the Bane of Doom having a 30% increased chance to summon an Ebon Imp just means more damage output on your part as well from Guardians. So definitely take this. You can be using Bane of Doom in arenas or BGs, and you will be using Demon form in both, along with all the spells listed. Probably one of the best talents in the tree. Next we have Demonic Empowerment, which grants the summoned demon some form of empowerment. Let's look straight at Felguard, because that's what you're going to be using pretty much. Instantly removes all stun, snare, fear, banish, or horror, pretty much any CCs on the Felguard, and makes it immune to those things for 15 seconds. Pretty much what I look at a Demonology Warlock as is a counter. He's a counter Warlock. If it's a melee guy, he can use his pet to stun and gain distance and burn down the melee enemy. If it's a caster enemy, they're going to be squishier, at which point the physical damage of his Felguard is going to be his strong point. So he's kind of got wild cards for both situations. And this helps you make your Felguard your counter to the casters, because the casters can easily banish or fear with an AoE fear or stun it and run away. If you demonic empowerment it, it will still be your counter because they can't do those things. So that's pretty cool. I would say pick up demonic empowerment. It's pretty neat. If you use your any of your other pets, it's pretty cool. Voidwalker has no place in PvP except for sacrifice, which is okay if you're running the flag, but demonic empowerment does nothing for you in PvP if you have Voidwalker. The Fell Hunter, it's okay. The Succubus is pretty cool because in arenas, a lot of times the Succubus will get focused down if you're using her instead of Felguard, but if you're Demonology, you almost definitely have to be using Felguard. So really, you're just looking at that remove CC. Next, we have Improved Health Funnel, which increases the amount of health transferred by your health funnel spell by 20%, reduces the health cost by 20%. In addition, your summoned demon takes 30% less damage while you're health funneling. Like I said before, if your summoned demon is getting focused down, you should be able to burn down the enemy focusing your demon down, because you're not getting harassed. So this one is, again, one of those meh, not really useful talents. Which means you have a point to spend before you can get to the next row. I would say the three that I mentioned earlier, pick one of those two and put points in it. I'm going to go one of two Fell Synergy. Next, we've got the fourth row, which has Molten Core, 3-point talent, which gives you a 6% chance to gain the Molten Core effect, which is caused by your immolation's damage, which counts as the damage over times and the initial damage. The Molten Core effect empowers your next 3 Incinerate spells cast within 15 seconds, increasing its damage done by 18% and reducing cast time by 30%. Pretty much, Incinerate is going to be your big burn down spell. It's going to be the one that you're going to be casting in your downtime if you're not having to haul ass away from someone. So making that faster cast, always a good thing. Interesting, sorry about that. And making it more damage output, always a good thing. Next, we're looking at Hand of Gul'dan, which is one of the new spells that came in with Cataclysm. It was pretty cool, and it still is. It's got a nice 40-yard range that we love to see on Warlocks, and it's got a pretty hefty cooldown, unfortunately, of 12 seconds. So when you cast it, be sure you've got everything prepped and ready to use what it gives you and still be able to manage and survive for the 12 seconds until you can get it out again. It's actually got about 2-second cast time. I do have some haste, so that might be 2.5. Either way, it's got a decent cast time. It's a little longer than Unstable Affliction for Affliction Warlocks, but it's not ridiculous, like 4 or 6 seconds. Basically, it calls a giant purple blob down, dealing some Shadow Flame damage. So if they're immune or have Shadow resistance up, it'll do fire. If they're immune or absorbing fire, it'll do shadow. So it's pretty cool when you can get these Shadow Flame or Frost Fire abilities in there. So yeah, Shadow Flame damage, which erupts in an aura of magic within 4 yards. It's just this little purple swirl on the ground. I'm sure you've seen it before if you've been PvPing. It causes all targets within it to have 10% chance to be critically hit by any Warlock demons. So this, coupled with Mana Feed, is actually pretty nice, because your demon will start critting more, which means you'll get mana back when you do Hand of Gul'dan. The aura lasts for 15 seconds, so people can be running through it and pick up the buff. Your Felguard can get a hit on them, and hey, what do you know, you get some mana back. It's a nice little couple. Plus, this does a lot of damage. It's your heavy damage output. For those of you who play Destruction, it's kind of your Chaos Bolt. Or your Haunt in the case of Affliction Warlocks. It's kind of the, 12 seconds up, bam, extra damage out of nowhere. It's pretty cool. And then also the Aura of Foreboding, which is an add-on attachment to Hand of Gul'dan, similar to, if you play StarCraft, a reactor. Sorry, bad joke. Just ignore that if you don't play StarCraft 2. Anyway, Aura of Foreboding. When your Hand of Gul'dan lands, all enemies within the 4-yard pool will be rooted for 3 seconds and stunned for the same duration if they are still within the Curse of Gul'dan aura 6 seconds afterwards. So basically, It lands, you gain a snare effect, which is something Warlocks didn't have before. Very cool. If they're still sitting in that crap 3 seconds after the snare is worn off, which is a total of 6 seconds, they get stunned, which is something that only Destruction Warlocks had until now, minus the Felguard stun. So it's pretty cool. It makes your Hand of Gul'dan a very versatile, very effective spell. It it already does a lot of damage. It already gives your demon extra crit chance. This makes you have a snare and potentially a stun. Very cool. It's pretty nice if you can do your Hand of Gul'dan and then time your Felguard's knockdown at when the snare wears off, because that's going to increase the chance that they're going to receive the stun. It's amazing if you can get that timing to line up perfectly, but rarely does it happen. So one of two there, we will backfill, just checking the next row. We've got Ancient Grimoire, which increases the duration of your Doomguard and Infernal summon spells by 20 seconds total at 2 points. Nice for BGs, completely useless in arenas. So if you don't know which one you're going to be doing, or you're doing both, not the best. If you're doing only BGs, like rated BGs, or just pugging BGs, which is what I do 90% of the time, almost 100% with my Warlock nowadays, then it's not a bad talent. It's pretty cool. Because 20 extra seconds on your heaviest hitting Guardians is hardcore, especially in things like Alterac Valley and Isle of Conquest. When you have the PvE bosses in the middle or end of it, you summon your Doomguard for heavy, heavy, heavy single target damage. If you end up having a huge fight on the bridge of Alterac Valley or something, an AoE Infernal Stun can be critical, and he does area damage, which is nice because that means their healers have to burn their mana healing the extra area damage. Very cool. So it can be good, but sometimes every once in a while I do arenas, and there might be something better. So let's keep that on the back burner. It's definitely better than, say, Master Summoner, in my opinion, or especially Improved Health Funnel. Anyway, next we have Chain from Hand of Gul'dan, something called Inferno, 1 rank. Enables you to channel Hellfire while moving and increases the duration of your Immolate by 6 seconds. Hellfire, they kind of buffed Hellfire. It does more damage, especially compared to how much health it takes away now. And being able to move with it is kind of nice. Especially if you're chasing a pack of people, it's okay. But, I mean, the 6-second extension on your Immolate is enough to want to take that talent, in my opinion. The Hellfire while moving is nice, but the 6 seconds on Immolate is kick-ass. Because that's an extra 2 to 3 ticks right there, depending on haste. Next, we have Decimation, which when your Shadow Bolt, Incinerate, or Soulfire hits a target that is at or below 25% health, the cast time of your Soulfire spell is reduced by 20% for 10 seconds. So basically, if you're attacking someone with 25% or less health, your huge damage spell, which is Soulfire, has a 20%, potentially, yes, 40% reduced cast time. At a 40% reduced cast time, Soulfire is going to be sitting at about the same cast time as your Incinerate spell, which means you can be doing more damage for the same amount of time spent casting a spell. Pretty damn awesome. I'm sorry. So yeah, very cool. That's 3 points in this row. You could take Ancient Grimoire for 2 of 2, but I would highly recommend backfilling the 2 locations that you only have half filled at this point, because Ancient Grimoire is nice. However, it's again like the situation I was talking about with your Mastery, where it only helps for small periods of time. Your Mastery only helps your damage output while you're in demon form, which is only for a small period of time. That Ancient Grimoire only helps as long as that demon is alive. Granted, it makes that demon alive for 10 to 20 seconds longer, but that 10 to 20 seconds isn't going to be as much damage output that you could gain if you were to, say, have the target snared, which could actually save your life, you know. And you're not going to have these Guardians available all the time, whereas you will have Hand of Gul'dan every 12 seconds. Finally, backfill Fell Synergy, because having half-filled talents is icky and disgusting and silly. If you really don't care about whether they're half-filled or not, I would honestly say go max this out and then 1 of 2 Ancient Grimoire and have 1 of 2 Fell Synergy. that would work fine too, but I personally am a completionist. I don't like half-filled talents. Anyway, moving on from my problems, let's look at the next one, which is cremation, which increases the damage done by your Hellfire by 30% at 2 points. That's really where Hellfire gets its buff, and it's like, okay, maybe it's not that big of a deal that I'm losing health for this because you're doing so much AoE damage. Also, your Hand of Gul'dan has a 100% chance to refresh the duration on Immolate. If you watched my PvP Affliction Spec guide, that is very similar to the Everlasting Affliction talent, which you can see right over here. Basically, every 12 seconds you'll be able to refresh the timing on your Immolate. Your Immolate lasts longer than 12 seconds, especially with the 6-second bonus from Inferno. Therefore, your Immolate shouldn't ever fall off your main target you're focusing, which is pretty damn awesome. Unless bad things happen, because crazy shit can happen in PvP, right? I know we've all been there. So Cremation, definitely a awesome talent. You definitely want to take it. And next we have Demonic Pact, which I mentioned this earlier. This is very good, very important. You should take this. Increases your spell damage by 2%, and your summoned demon grants the Demonic Pact effect to all nearby friendly party members and raid members. The Demonic Pact effect increases spell power by 10%. Now, you might be saying, well, that's stupid. He's giving the raid the better part of the buff. Shouldn't I get the best part of the buff? If you're looking at raiding, PvP guide, sorry. A little bit of meshing going on there. But you can say the same thing about it in a PvP scenario. Hey, he's giving the best part to my allies. That does affect you also, but that's not the best part. You need to read in close. The first percentage is increases your spell damage by 2%. That is a flat 2% increase on everything you do. Flat 2%. The increased spell power by 10%, which you still also get on top of the 2% spell damage increase, is factored in through all the coefficients and crap that goes into your spells. You add 10% of your spell power on top of your spell power now, then you take that nice, juicy, fat-looking number that makes you look like a god, you shove it into that annoying little equation for each spell, and you find out that after all the coefficients and all the rambling, that 10% bonus spell power almost never factors into a flat 2% damage increase. It's a little bit more, but it's not awesome. So that 2% damage increase you give yourself by picking this Demonic Pact talent is the best part of the talent. The 10% increased spell power is the gravy on top of the delicious golden mashed potatoes underneath. Forgive the comparison. However, still very important. Again, one of the best talents in the tree, borderlining Impending Doom and Hand of Gul'dan. And, of course, the final talent. Now, you have 2 points to spend. Well, Seth, where do I spend them? Is what you might be thinking right now. Well, let's look at what we have left. We have Demonic Rebirth, pretty cool talent, has really great place in arenas, so-so in BGs. We've got Master Summoner, which is just meh all around. I mean, summoning's not costing mana is cool, but 1 second shaved off the summon isn't going to let you get it out in a heavy combat environment anyway. So it's kind of like, well, why am I going to worry about that if the only time I'm resummoning my demon is out of combat? Improved Health Funnel, probably the worst talent in the tree. You know, this is for if you're using your pet for tanking. It's really a leveling talent, if that. And finally, we have Ancient Grimoire, which is pretty damn cool in BGs, but pretty damn useless in arenas. So I would say either Ancient Grimoire, especially if you're doing rated BGs, or if you just pug BGs a lot, it could be fun. But if you're more into arenas, Demonic Rebirth. So much better than Ancient Grimoire in arenas. Obviously, for obvious reasons. And in BGs, it's still pretty cool. It's nice to have, because it's an instant cast, resummon, after your demon dies. If your demon dies, that's going to suck, but sometimes it does happen. Sometimes you just can't do anything about it, and I understand that. But you should take that opportunity of your demon dying to put out more damage. However, if it does die, this is nice to have. So I'm personally going to pick Demonic Rebirth because I do BGs, and very occasionally I will do arenas. And Ancient Grimoire is only super helpful in 2 BGs. It's only kind of helpful in the rest. So, it's heavily debatable where those 2 points specifically go. So, again, that's another situation where it's tailor it to your playstyle. If your demon never dies because you love it, because you always health funnel it, then grab health funnel. It's your playstyle at that point. I've talked about the ones that are amazing. All these extra points that I say, I think this is where I'm going to put it. That's the time you take to customize it for your playstyle. This is what I've found to work, though. And finally, the big baddie talent of them all, Metamorphosis, which causes you to transform into a demon for 30 seconds, extendable by glyphs, which gives you 600% more armor, 20% more damage, reduces the chance you'll be critically hit by 6%, and reduces duration of snare and stun effects by 50%. You gain some unique demon abilities while you're a demon, 3-minute cooldown. That cooldown is reduced by Impending Doom, 15% chance to take 15 seconds off of it each time you cast Hand of Gul'dan, Shadowbolt, or Incinerate, which happens fairly often. So, what are the special abilities you get from Metamorphosis? I don't know if I want that talent. Well, it's the last talent in the tree. You better damn want it. Anyway, basically, the abilities you get from this are Demonic Leap, which is similar to Heroic Leap. However, it's just a set distance in front of where your character is facing. Not where your camera is, your character. So, it's not as good as Heroic Leap, but it does some AoE damage. You also get something called Immolation Aura, which basically does damage over time to everything around you, which is pretty awesome. Also, the flat damage increase and the reduced stun and snare effects while you're a demon is kick-ass. That is going to be okay, it's time to burn this guy so hard. That's when you pop Metamorphosis, is to say, hey, 20% more damage out of nowhere. And you can't kill me. It's one of those situations. So, very awesome, very clutch. Best talent in the tree, especially because it's the last one. Closely followed by Impending Doom, because they work so damn well together. Anyway, we've got 10 points left. You can fill other things in Demonology if you so choose. These 10 points are, as always, customization points. However, what I've found best to work is going over to the Destruction tree. So we're going to look at Affliction first, just to not cheat anyone. You have Doom and Gloom, which increases crit strike of your Bane of Agony and Bane of Doom. You are going to be using Bane of Doom fairly often, so that is not a bad talent to pick up. Improve Life Tap. Again, not a bad talent to pick up. In arenas, it's much more viable because you need the mana conservation if it's going to be a long fight. In BGs, it's meh. If you really need mana that bad, go die and respawn. If you're surviving that long anyway. And then Improved Corruption increases the damage of your Corruption by 4%. Not bad. If you can fit Corruption into your rotation, which I sincerely hope you can, it'll be a good talent. It's not a bad thing. Jinx, I didn't even say take Jinx for Affliction, so don't take it for Demonology. Soul Siphon, this one's interesting. Increases the amount drained by Drain Life and Drain Soul for each of the Affliction effects on the target. Now, your Bane of Doom and your Corruption are the only 2 Affliction effects you can put on the target. So you can't even get the maximum bonus of this unless you're Affliction. So don't even bother taking it, which locks out Soul Siphon, which is a pretty cool talent that causes your Corruption to heal you 50% of the time, but you have to take a talent that you can't get everything out of in order to reach it. So I would say don't take that. Now let's look over at Destruction, where it's going to be more tasty. Reduces casting time of Shadowbolt, Chaos Bolt, and Immolate. Well, you don't have Chaos Bolt, but sure as hell do have Shadowbolt, and you do have Immolate. Immolate is excessively important in Demonology as it procs your Molten Core, and it does your best damage over time. So, reducing the casting time of Immolate is very good. Even if it's only by 0.5 seconds, it's very good. That half second could be the difference between getting that off and being feared before you get that off, depending on your situation. So, very good. And if the other Demo Warlock doesn't have that talent, your Immolates and your Shadowbolts are going to be coming out faster than his, which means you will be doing more damage faster. Next, we're going to look at Shadow and Flame, which increases the damage done by your Shadow Bolt and Incinerate spells by 12%. Shadow Bolt and Incinerate also have a 100% chance to cause a debuff called Shadow and Flame, which causes the target to be vulnerable to spell damage, increasing critical strike chance against that target by 5%. Basically, it's similar to the Fire Mage ability Critical Mass. It'll increase spell critical strike chance by 5%. Pretty awesome. I mean, the first half of this is enough to make you want it. 12% more damage from Shadow Bolt and Incinerate, your 2 spam spells. Awesome. You're going to be casting Incinerate with Molten Core. You take 3 points in this, that's 12% on top of Molten Core's 18% given to you, giving you a total of 30% increased damage from your Incinerate spell alone when you have Molten Core up. Amazing. You want that. You want this. The 5% increased crit is gravy on top of the mashed potatoes, like I discussed earlier. Awesome. You also have Improved Immolate, which increases the damage done by your Immolate spell by 10%, 20% at 2 points. Pretty good. You're going to be wanting to cast Immolate. Not a bad talent to take either. Looking at the next row, we also have Aftermath, which causes your Rain of Fire to have a chance to stun the targets and your Conflag to daze. You don't have Conflag as a demo lock, and if you're going to be AoEing, it should be Hellfire, because you can move around and it's doing extra damage from Cremation. So, not really the best talent at all to take for a demo lock. Emberstorm reduces the cast time of your Soulfire by a second, and your Incinerate by 0.25 seconds. Incinerate, having a, wait a minute, Molten Core, 30% reduced cast time, and having a flat 0.25 seconds off, that's going to be a fast Incinerate. Not only that, Decimation, 40% reduced cast time on Soulfire, and a flat 1 second off, that's going to be a fast Soulfire when you get your Decimation up. Awesome stacking talent. Works so well with Molten Core and Decimation. It's delicious. I'm surprised it's not a Demonology talent, to be honest, with the way they set this up. But it does make sense where it is now as well. And finally, Improved Searing Pain, which increases critical strike chance of your Searing Pain by 20%, 40% on target at or below 25% health. You already have a talent that is for killing people at or below 25% health called Decimation. You don't need Improved Searing Flame. If the target is at or below 25% health, you should be casting Soulfire, not Improved Searing Pain. So you don't need that talent. Which means you have 2 points left over. With these 2 points, my 2 recommendations would be Doom and Gloom for the 8% increased crit chance on Bane of Doom, which is the one that you're going to be using, or 2 of 2 Improved Immolate, which increases the damage done by Immolate by 10-20%. I personally am going to take Improved Immolate because, hey, it's Immolate, I like it. And 2, this 20% increases the initial damage and the damage over time it does. And it will always work. 8% crit chance is only going to be helping when it turns out a crit. And a dot critting isn't the main focus of a Demonology Warlock. Or any Warlock for that matter, because Affliction wants it to tick fast, not necessarily crit. That's just gravy on the mashed potatoes. So, Doom and Gloom not as good as Improved Immolate in my opinion, because you will always be casting Improved Immolate. You may not always be casting Bane of Doom, let's face it. So, this has been Sethaldor on the server Blade's Edge on the character Bank Chant on the topic of PvP Demonology Specking. I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep in mind everything was with a grain of salt. Apologies if I rambled at any point in time. If you disagree with anything suggested in this video, please feel free to. That is your freedom and your right to disagree and question. And by all means, change this to how you see fit with your playstyle. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this guide and are interested in more guides, please check out my channel. I have Druid, Paladin, Mage. Eventually those will get updated. I'm also coming out with more Warlock stuff at the moment. I do other gaming things. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, subscribe, recommend me to your friends. And I really do hope you enjoyed this. I have so much fun making these for everyone. I love testing these specs out. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching. This has been Sethaldor. Peace.